Well, good day, folks. I'm back for episode number 2 in a series on The Secret, a Treasure Hunt, Byron Preiss. So, in my first episode, I talked a little bit about the authors, illustrators, and people involved in creating The Secret. At this point in time, I feel appropriate to start looking at the book itself. So, I'm going to start with the dedication page. And it says in the book here, it says this book is dedicated to Alexander Ginsberg, Yuri Orlov, Anatolov Sharansky, Andrei Sakharov, Viktor Nekapelov, George Ledimov, and all other voices of freedom in the Soviet darkness. Well, 1982. I guess this is just basically a reference to the fact that we were involved in a Cold War with Russia, at that time called the Soviet Union. And that being involved in this Cold War, there was a number of exchanges of prisoners that were thought to be United States spies in Russia, the Soviet Union. And there was a whole bunch of people who were wanting to escape the Soviet Union for political or religious freedom reasons. And I find that for this being a book called The Secret, a rather odd dedication. And so I thought maybe I would just take a moment to see who these people are. And again, we're talking about this book. I don't know if this dedication was in the original Secret or if this is the exact dedication page with the iBooks information added to it, or whether this is a totally different dedication page. But let us just start by looking at Alexander Ginsberg. Okay, so Alexander Ginsberg is again one of these Russian dissidents. This one happened to be a journalist. He was a poet and a human rights activist, and he came to the United States after he was sentenced to a labor camp for 8 years in the former Soviet Union. Um, he was kind of a semi-orphan. He was educated in Moscow, and he worked as a lathe operator and a part-time journalist after leaving school. Now, I have been looking at one of the images in the book for some time now, and it looks to me like one of them has some wooden lathe turned items in it, like the posts. They look like these wood turned, lathe turned wood items. And I don't know if this guy worked at a metal lathe or worked on a wooden lathe, but it just may be coincidence that I found that. And then it also says that he was an actor. And I found in the back of the book a number of actors and a number of people I thought were potentially actors. And that he then had to quit acting after falling from a third story window. Well, maybe this is the 3 stories of Mitchell. Ha ha ha. No, I just made that joke up. 3 stories of Mitchell to me is basically Margaret Mitchell, who only wrote 3 stories in her lifetime. And the one that's the most important is Gone with the Wind, which we all know. And it has a staircase in it. I'll get into that later. Okay, so in 1959, he was involved in writing for Phoenix magazine, and he composed an almanac, a Syntic, which was his work of poetry. Um, he was one of the co-defendants in the trial of the Four, and this was basically 4 people that the KGB tried for espionage, and he was sentenced to a labor camp. He did some hard labor, and in 1976 he became a founding member of the Moscow Helsinki Group, which monitored breaches of human rights in the Soviet Union. And he was involved in these Helsinki Accords, which was basically a bunch of ideas that people would make sure that human rights are being protected around the world. And so that gives you an idea of who this guy was. He was also in favor of advocating nonviolent resistance as well. Okay, so this gives you one of the guys that he mentions. The next one is Yuri Orlov. Yuri Orlov. Does this mean you should love New Orleans? or love? Ooh. Anyway, so this guy, I think, was this is either the um, uh, he was another Soviet dissident. He was a founding member of the Soviet Amnesty International group, and also a member of that Moscow Helsinki group. He was declared a prisoner of conscience while serving 9 years in a prison and internal exile for monitoring the Helsinki Human Rights Accords. Okay, so we've had two guys who now have been put in prison by the Soviet Union. And I don't know if at this point we should start drawing conclusions as to what the hell Byron was thinking here in his dedication. We have the Fortress North cold as glass. Is this the Fortress North people he's talking about? Russian dissidents that were imprisoned? People that were imprisoned for political reasons somewhere? Is that the fortress we should be looking for? I don't know. I'm just trying to draw inferences as to why he chose this group. Um, so this guy actually has a postgraduate degree in experimental physics. Okay, and so I think if you find out more about this particular guy, he may have had something to do uh, uh, with a number of different things in terms of physics and their um, development. For instance, Yuri Orlov was involved in the particle accelerator program, uh, and he was ousted from the Communist Party. There was a whole deal where Jimmy Carter got involved in this guy's trial and worked to get him freed. Uh, And there were some protests over this. A Washington senator by the name of Henry M. Jackson said that the Orloff trial and the Ginsburg and Sharansky incarcerations are dramatic cases in point when discussing Soviet breaches of law. The United States National Academy of Science officially protested against the trial of Orlov. And so this guy becomes a fairly important figure during the Jimmy Carter administration because he was bringing to light some of these concerns over the imprisonment of these scientists of the Soviet Union who did not necessarily want to escalate, I guess, the uh, development of certain weapons and elements that were going on in physics through the 1970s and 80s that would lead to this escalation of the Cold War. So that's kind of, I guess, kind of where Yuri Orlov may play in. The next one he mentions is Andrei Sakharov. Where's Sakharov at? Here he is. No, hold it. Sharansky's who we need to talk to. We'll talk about Sharansky. So Natan Sharansky, otherwise known as Anatoly Borisovich Sharansky, is again another Soviet dissident, and he later was an Israeli politician. He was 9 years again in the Soviet prison system for being a refusenik. And here we bring in the Jewish aspect of this group of people, and that he was involved as the chairman of the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. And I guess maybe Byron might have been Jewish. I don't know his religious affiliation, but perhaps this is why we're bringing in the argument of religious background. There's a lot of religious information in these paintings. There's a lot of, let's just say, Catholic robes. A lot of robes in the secret images. A lot of imagery of religious symbols in the secret. And I don't know if this is an early indication of that by showing us this guy that was the chairman of the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism. And so Sharansky graduated from university, began working for the secret state research laboratory. And again, he's another scientist, another one of these that could have fully and more dramatically escalated a Cold War should developments have came out of that program. Again, a member of that Helsinki group, and was, basically possibly a candidate for the death penalty. Sharansky immigrated to Israel and adopted the Hebrew name Natan, and changed his name from Sharansky. He then had a political career after The Secret book was written, so that information is probably irrelevant. But again, another one of these dissidents. Here's Andrei Sakharov, and this is Andrea Dmitrovich Sakharov. Again, he's a nuclear physicist, a dissident, activist for nuclear disarmament and peace treaty and human rights. Andrei Sakharov was renowned for the design of the Soviet Union's RDS-37. And this is basically the bomb. This guy was the architect of the Soviet bomb. So, not only were these figures that he gave a shout out to as being dedicated to, not only were they dissidents, they were scientific dissidents. He, in fact, earned the Nobel Peace Prize in 1975. And so, again, another physicist, another nuclear program kind of guy. Not only just the, and so again, this is a device that would be put in an enriched uranium device that would be propelled rocket propulsion. Maybe this is where the people that are so emphatic that those are rockets is because of this dedication. I just don't know. So there's Victor Nepekhalov, Victor Nekapelov, the necromaniac, the necromancer. Is Victor necromancer? No, I don't think so. But it's hard not to just go on those tangents. A 9-year prison sentence, again, a member of that Moscow Helsinki group. So he was born in a Soviet family of workers of the Chinese Eastern Railway. Well, a lot of people have these railway references. And so here this guy is basically mixed, he might be mixed race, Russian. He was arrested for spreading known false fabrications to damage the political system. He again is joined the Moscow Helsinki group, another member of that. So he's maybe one of the later ones because he didn't get his release until later. But this one, the Nekapelov worked as a pharmacist. So let's just keep this in mind. This guy is a pharmacist. He's a druggist. And his interest in the Soviet Union had to do with medicine and pharmacy and drugs. So he's also a poet. So again, what are the things that these people are involved in? Well, we've got railway, we got pharmacy, we got nuclear. Again, you've got to wonder, of all the people that were in this Helsinki group, why do we single out this group? Is it because they have something specific that we want to know about? Medicine, pharmacy, literature, poetry, nuclear, propulsion devices. The specialties of these people that were these dissidents. and their backgrounds might be important to understanding later on what we're looking for. We've seen the chess. We've seen the chess pieces in a number of the images, right? And one of these guys was a noted chess player, right? And so, is that the reference to the chess patterns later on in the book? Are they that we need to look at somebody that played chess because these dissidents? The last one is Georgy Vladimov, and this one's interesting. He's a member. He founded, or is a leader of Amnesty International in 1977. His most famous book novel is called Faithful Russian, and this is the tale of a guard dog in the Soviet Union Gulag, which is basically the prison, and it's told from the dog's perspective. Uh, and it Soviet Union, it was called a samizdat publication. Uh, he's also got another novel called The General and His Army. But that one didn't come out until 1995, so we can't use that one. So anyway, but his other book called The Great Ore was actually published in 1961. And The Sixth Soldier is also a 1981 publication. So we can use those as known attributes of this guy by the time the book was written. But I think the takeaway of this is that his most famous novel is Faithful Russian, The Tale of a Guard Dog. And the reason I bring this up is because I believe that there's a possibility that in the image that people think is in New York, that there is a dog in that robe. And if there's truly a dog in that robe, and we're talking about a dog, and a dog that has a statue by the name of Balto, then here we are getting introduced very early on in the book to Georgy Vladimov. And again, in the order of these people, you have to look at the order. These people are being introduced in a specific order, and so maybe the first images or one of the images towards has to do with the things associated with Ginsburg, and the later images has something to be associated with Vladimov. And if you're associating Vladimov with the last image, you're talking about a dog here. Well, if you like Balto in that image, that could be some good information. Okay, well, so I guess what I'm saying is I think that no author put something in his book for no reason. And, I don't think he just pulled these names out of the sky to be included in the first dedication of the book. And nobody maybe reads the dedication pages, but I do. Okay, so I am going to go on and now talk about the fact that Vincent van Gogh is basically a character that gets brought up because a person by the name of Kathy Connolly and a one-eared cat. And I have not been able to find any information about this Connolly. And I'm wondering if he was just introducing at this point in the book the name Connolly so that we'll look at John Connolly of Texas. And John Connolly famously was riding in a limousine as it went through Dealey Plaza, and is involved in a major part of our history of the United States as it goes. And so the one-eared cat and Vincent and Kathy Connolly, I'm a little lost at all of that. But Vincent Willem van Gogh, famously cut off his ear. He was being, he's being treated for psychotic episodes and delusions, and he was worried about his mental stability. And lo and behold, a homeopathic doctor by the name of Paul Gachet introduces himself to Van Gogh, starts treating him, and within a year, he decides that he's going to kill himself. And he does. But you see, there are these letters. All the letters are there to see. And so there is a collection of 903 surviving letters uh, by Vincent van Gogh. And more than 650 of these were from Vincent to his brother Theo. The collection also includes letters Van Gogh wrote to his sister and other relatives. And this collection of letters by Van Gogh, you would just have to wonder, all the letters are there to see. Uh, and again, Van Gogh has very little relationship to the United States, but maybe he's just telling us that the Van Gogh, I don't know, wheat field with crows, some of these works by Van Gogh, sunflowers. I mean, I'm bringing up just the most famous works by Van Gogh, and I don't know if there's any reference to this. He was a member of the Dutch Reformed Church. Uh, anyway, there might be a stretch, but the idea that Van Gogh is introduced here in the very first part of the book is always kind of like, why do you need to mention Vincent, a one-eared cat? I just think I think it's in there for something. Uh, and then, like I said, I haven't been able to find Kathy Connolly. Let's see. So I went through this list of people he'd like to thank, and Lewis Wolf. I found some of these people to be real people. One of them was his publisher. Another one was another person he might have been acquainted for. Barry Denenberg, I think, was somebody that was certainly a member of that. Charlotte Gasparini, Betsy Burnfield. Remember, we think that one's up in the Burn, up there at the one place. Oswald, Mrs. Oswald Novaez. I don't know if Oswald Novaez is a real person or not, or whether that's to tell us that Oswald might be involved. Emily Dieter. I don't know if Emily Dieter is a real person. I can't verify any of these people are real people. But it makes you wonder if these people were real, or if some of them might just be worked in made up name. Patrice Clay. I mean, some of these names that became Applebaum, Stuart Applebaum, Lucy Salvino. I guess they're real people. I didn't take the time to look them all up, but the Connolly one kind of got me going. Okay, so I'm going to move forward a little bit to, well, I guess that's just about going to cover it as far as this presentation is concerned, about the dedication page and where these items were photographed, and whether these were real people or not. I found it interesting that Byron Preiss was, we all think that one is a Pearl, that his mother's name was actually Pearl, and his father's name was Edmund. I just kind of got a kick out of that. Everybody thinks that one image is of Pearl, who was the singer out there, Janis Joplin. Where there was actually a movie that came out based upon the life of Janis Joplin in the 1980s, and I think it was Bette Midler played the lead role, and that was a movie called The Rose. And so if we look at that image that has the rose in it, and the one that people think is, has to do with Janis Joplin, there is some, anecdotal 1980s information about a movie called The Rose, and it being about Janis Joplin. So, that might be potential confirmation for that one. Okay, I'm going to come back and just start going through the book, talking a little bit about each page as we encounter them, and I will be back and start talking about the contents section of the book.